All right, welcome everybody. We're here taking questions on Reddit. It's been really interesting getting all of the feedback and questions and thoughts that the broader public has. And so we're going to take some time to try to answer as many of these as possible. There's, I think, about 500 total questions, so we're not going to get to all of them. But thankfully, there were quite a few that had high votes, high upvotes, and a lot of questions were similar. The question is, how are we going to turn the service around? How do we get more frequent buses? And I admit that there are a lot of challenges with MATA. Right now, the current schedule requires about 74 buses to meet the schedule on average. And right now we're putting out about 56 buses per day. And so we know that we are not meeting the basic milestones that we need to meet. So our number one priority right now is to fix the old and outdated fleet. Our goal is to address frequency issues. We want a person to be able to know when the bus is coming, and we think that a 2-hour wait is not reasonable. It's not something that fits with the life of most of our residents. We're currently working on key performance indicators that are going to drive positive outcomes for passengers. We want on-time performance for buses and paratransit. We want to know how many times are we missing a trip, how many times are people denied trips. We're also thinking about how our system should be planned. Right now, we have a very, very large geography in Memphis. It's about 300 square miles, and we're trying to move buses, large buses, around that whole geography. We're trying to identify where are there areas where we can enhance route performance and frequency, and where are there areas where we may need smaller, more nimble vehicles to work in those areas so that we have a more efficient system. And we have a team that is serving as leadership right now with TransPro. They have taken an interim role. This is not permanent leadership, but we feel like over the next 7 to 8 months, they have an opportunity to stabilize so that we can move into the long-term model for MATA with a more efficient system. I love this question around blight, and especially airways leaving the airport, or Plow Boulevard as it's most accurately known. And I agree that that area can and should look a whole lot better. Our team is currently working on a plan for a redesign of Plow Boulevard, particularly the green spaces that separate the north and southbound lanes. We think that that is going to make a dramatic difference with how people feel when they are visiting our city, and also how residents feel when they come home from their trips out of town. Blight is something that I am really, really, really passionate about addressing as a community. We have recently put out a RFP for small businesses and nonprofits to be able to serve as vendors that will clean on the major corridors that are located in every part of the city. Many people remember how well our public works team handled the snow. And it was because we used our major corridors as the areas where we wanted to do the most cleaning. We're going to use those same corridors to ensure that we have groups that are out there picking up litter, cutting grass, and doing those things that make our areas more aesthetically pleasing on a very, very regular basis. And we think that that's going to make a dramatic difference with how people feel about the aesthetics of the areas around it. Less than half of the residential properties in Memphis are owner-occupied, 46%, nationwide 64%. Now layer in the fact that 40% of all single-family homes in Memphis are owned by large investment groups or corporations, and half of those aren't even based in Tennessee. How are you going to safeguard affordable housing for all residents? Do you have a plan to levy higher property taxes on investment properties? This is certainly an issue that I'm passionate about, given that I previously served as the director of housing for the city of Memphis, and the statistics stated here are accurate. We do have about 46% of our residents that are homeowners, and the remaining amount are renters. And I like to make sure that people understand that that's not a problem in itself. There are many communities where there's a predominance of rental housing. The challenge for us particularly is that the neighborhoods in which the rental housing units are located aren't ones that were built for rental housing. They were neighborhoods that were largely built up as single-family homes. And I think that we missed an important moment about 5 years ago when the prices for housing were relatively low. The interest rates especially were low. And we had families that were competing with these large corporations to buy these single-family homes, and the families were losing out because they couldn't offer some of the speed and the high amounts that those companies were willing to pay. And where we find ourselves now, we have to figure out how do we get more of those individuals that are renting, that have the capacity to own homes, how do we get more product? So the first step is for us to work with our housing department, with the state housing agencies, and find more incentives for building affordable housing, for building starter homes. And those are things that our departments are working on daily using the newly created Housing Trust Fund, which was created in 2019, back when I was the housing director. And so that can be used to help bridge the gap. The other thing that I think is really important is that, and you mentioned in your question around taxation and how we can get more from the companies that are owning all of these houses. I think one of the simple ways that we can get more dollars out of those companies is to fix the code such that those companies that own a large number of homes, maybe 10 or more in the city, are assessed at the commercial property rates instead of the single-family property rates. Right now, the assessment for someone that owns a single-family home is 25%. But if you own 1,000 units in the city of Memphis, you're still paying that 25% and not the 40% commercial rate. And so that's one of the ways that we are exploring with our team, how we might be able to fix the assessment process such that we bring more dollars in to support those communities that have been transformed from being predominantly single-family home ownership to being rental communities. Question is, what is your official position on the Fagan School Board fiasco? And I'm not surprised that this has gotten a lot of traction. This certainly was a big deal in our community. Behind the scenes, I did make a number of calls and, tried to get everybody to let calmer, cooler heads prevail. But it was clear that it was moving forward in that way. So what I wanted to do was ensure that people understood the role that the city plays and the partnership that we must have for the kids in our community. The city has no oversight over the school board, over superintendent, but the kids in our schools are young people that are going to return to our communities. And so it's important that we have a collaboration with the school system, irrespective of who the superintendent is. And so my goal as mayor is to make sure that we keep that collaboration going. The most important people in the school system for our kids are going to be those teachers and those principals. And so we work to try to have partnerships with them through our Office of Youth Services. We're looking for partnerships with our community centers to make sure that they're programmed so that as young people leave those school buildings, that they're able to actively engage in those community center spaces. And then I think that there are future opportunities for collaboration with the school board as we think about how to grow our neighborhoods and communities. We know that they have a pretty broad range of properties that are under their control, some of which are underutilized. And so we want to be a partner with the school system as they think about future uses for those properties. And so I know that may feel like I'm dodging the question, but I'm not. My position is that, I wish it wouldn't have happened and gone down in the way that it has, but my goal now is to make sure that we continue to serve the young people in our community. All right, so this next question is one around XAI, and it's not just one question. There are many questions around XAI, and so I want to try and give a broad context and talk about our engagement as a city and what we get out of it, because I think that's important. I do understand the concerns with, us being in this partnership with a billionaire that has a larger-than-life personality, but I like to separate the personality from the business that's happening locally. XAI was a startup company that was looking for a place to build the world's largest supercomputer, their brain, that's going to drive all of the artificial intelligence for that system. And it's important that we know that there is a worldwide race to determine who's going to be the leader in artificial intelligence. This is not just a national race, this is a worldwide race. And the city of Memphis was one of the cities that was competing. The thing that I think landed the deal for us was the fact that we had a facility that the city and the state invested $100 million into for Electrolux that had recently been abandoned. I say recently, but I think it had been 4 or 5 years since they had left that facility. So it was still in very, very good condition. And I think that positioned us ahead of some of the other spaces because they would have had to build from the ground up. And it was a space that we had that had been sitting vacant and dormant and not contributing to our tax base. So they came into this facility. They have invested $10 billion, literally 10 billion with a B. And sometimes when you say billions, it doesn't really strike home. So I like to say it was $999 million times 10 that was invested in this facility to build this large supercomputer. And when I had my first discussion with their team, the two things that we talked about as being concerns for our community, because obviously it's great to bring in the financial revenue, but what about the environmental concerns? Number one is the level of water that might be consumed from our aquifer. And we know that our aquifer is one of our most valuable resources. We have clean water that's coming from this underground lake that is some of the best water in the world. So I pointed that out and asked for them to be thoughtful about solutions for drinking water, and also wanted them to be thoughtful around the significant power consumption that would be necessary. And for both of those issues, they have worked to identify solutions that I think are for the benefit of our community. First, I'll talk about the addressing of the aquifer. Adjacent to this facility, we have a wastewater treatment plant that cleans up all of the sewage that comes from the southern part of the city. It cleans that, and then it pushes the water back out into the Mississippi River. XAI agreed to build an $80 million gray water facility that will take that water that would have gone into the Mississippi. It will now go into this gray water facility, be cleaned even more, and it will now be used to cool their computer. But they built it at a scale such that it won't just serve their needs, but it will also serve the needs of TVA, which is adjacent. For many years, there's been discussions around getting TVA to stop using water from the aquifer and using wastewater to cool their facility. They couldn't do it without this gray water facility. Now they have the ability to do it. Nucor Steel, which is adjacent as well, is now going to use water from this facility to cool the things that they're doing with their processes. And so this is a significant win to the community, because now we're going to have 9% of the water usage from the aquifer is going to be eliminated as a result of having this facility. When it comes to the power side, the biggest issue around power is when we have peak demand. And when you have peak demand, that's when you get notices from TVA and MLGW to reduce your power consumption. What the XAI facility has agreed to do is be a part of the demand response program, so that when demand response happens, you are agreeing that you will reduce at least 60% of your load. Well, with XAI, not only are they saying they'll reduce 60% of their load, they're going to reduce their consumption down to 0%, because they have brought in these large batteries that are the size of a tractor trailer, and they have hundreds of them around their facility, and they will use those to power their facility when those moments takes place. And not only will it power their facility, but it will also be able to provide power to TVA during those moments when they need it. Another win from the power side. I do understand the concern about the gas turbines, for which they did ask to be able to keep them for a longer period of time. But that request is only in the case that TVA and MLGW wouldn't be able to supply their needs. And so they're still going through their process, and they do believe that they'll be able to make that happen. And so my goal for our city is to make sure that we take what is a national race, what is a national competition, and this is something that is going to happen, and make sure that benefit comes to our community. When I spoke of the $10 billion that's being invested, I don't want it to be lost on anyone that $10 billion is invested in a facility that has no tax abatement. So that means that there are tens of millions of dollars that are going to be generated annually in taxes. That's financial benefit to our city, where one of the biggest challenges has been poverty and finding resources to take care of the basic needs of the community, like transit and paving the roads and affordable housing. We will have dollars that are coming into the city coffers, into the county coffers, that are going to support education. All of those resources are going to come from this facility. And so I separate the individual from the project, which can stand to have significant benefit to our community. And that's not to mention all of the innovation and things that we can do over and beyond as a result of having the world's largest computer right here in Memphis. What initiatives are you prioritizing to provide more opportunities for Memphis youth, whether through education, job training, or community programs? We certainly prioritize opportunities for our youth, specifically through our Office of Youth Services. One of the creative things that the Office of Youth Services did early on in our tenure was they looked at the range of programs that they offer, and what they found was a gap. And that gap was that the individuals or the young people that have significant need, they're the ones that aren't scoring high enough on our applications to be able to take advantage of the job opportunities that we have available during the summer. So they created another program that allowed for young people that may not have the best GPA, but who had a strong desire and aptitude for being engaged, to be able to get summer jobs opportunities. And that has been a significant win for the community and a significant win for those young people. In addition to that, they have built partnerships. There's one partnership that they built with a apartment manager in downtown Memphis, where they're taking young people from their program and they're actually training them on property management skills. And so our goal is to make sure that we are exposing our young people to a range of different fields that they might not even know are possible. And it's through partnerships like the one I described with the downtown apartment manager that I think we're going to see more enlightenment from our kids, from our young people, where the light bulb goes off and they find the thing that they're passionate about, and they're going to be able to exercise their passion right here in Memphis. Do you have a plan to stop the overuse of drive-out tags? We are actively working to ensure that we're cracking down on individuals that are using fake drive-out tags. We have our officers that are identifying those tags and pulling over cars that have them. And we're also working to get to the root of who is producing the fake drive-out tags. It's very apparent to the officers when they see them because they have visual differences from real drive-out tags. And so our team is definitely working hard to ensure that we hold people accountable that are using them. The question is around what we're doing to make Memphis a desirable location. And I firmly believe that Memphis is a desirable location for companies of all types. We're working to promote the quality of life amenities that our city provides. We have a low cost of living. We have access to green spaces, amazing trails and parks. We have great nightlife, great food, cuisine, and we have the talent. I think that it's important that people understand how nimble we as a community can be. If you have particular needs with your workforce, we have partnership opportunities with our educational institutions and our high schools to ensure that the talent pipeline remains full. And we are promoting those things actively to companies that are looking for different locations, but we're also targeting companies that we would like to see in our communities, and we're promoting those assets to them so that we can actively recruit them to our community. Crime-related question around the smashing of car windows, which I know is a very frustrating experience. I've experienced it personally, so I definitely understand it. We have been working very hard with our team to reduce the number of cars that are broken into by having a greater presence of officers in highly populated areas, coordinating with our teams, particularly in downtown, like the Blue Suede Brigade, and also enhancing the use of technology within downtown and other corridors throughout the city. That use of technology, while it may not stop the crime from happening, it allows us to capture the criminals quicker. And that's the most important thing, because there are a select few individuals that are wreaking the most havoc in our community. And our goal is to make sure that we are focusing and cracking down on who those individuals are. If you look at the statistics from 2024, it's about 37% down from 2023 with regards to car break-ins. And we want to continue to work hard to push that number down further. I agree with the point that is being made that if our kids can't read, then it's going to be hard for them to succeed. And we have obviously not been directly involved with the education side, given that it's under Memphis and Shelby County Schools. But we try to make sure that we are doing our role, doing our part. One of the things that I have been pushing since I have been mayor has been mentorship. And I think mentorship, while certainly it's about being a model and someone that young people can look up to, it's also an opportunity for us to help those young people with some of those critical skills like reading and supporting those young people on that literacy journey. Because I think people, our young people specifically, need to have examples of people that have been in their shoes, that are in places that they would like to go, and that inspires them to take things like reading more serious because they can see an end goal as a part of the process.